Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Coming to you on a September 7th, Thursday night, a live show for us over on YouTube. If you ever want to follow that, go to cornerofthegalaxy.com/live, all that great stuff. I'm Josh Guesman. Joining me, as always, is Miss Britt Pergl. We have a great show for you. The LA Galaxy actually got a win. That was fun. 3-0 win over the Colorado Rapids, and now they look and head towards a big matchup with Seattle. It should be interesting to see what Seattle sort of puts up. The LA Galaxy 0-1-1 when facing Seattle this year, but definitely a chance, possibly, to sort of overturn the apple cart, maybe. The leaders in the West, Galaxy might have a chance. Just maybe. We'll talk about it later, as always. All right, let's before we get any further, let's check in with Miss Britt Pergl. Britt, how's it going?
Pretty good. How about you, Josh?
You know, I'm hanging in there. It's a good long week. We're having a good day. Everybody's having a good time.
It's a short week, though.
It seems okay. Can I tell you that the short weeks sometimes seem a lot longer than maybe they should be? Does that ever work for you?
No.
No.
You're like 4 days instead of 5.
Yeah. You're like, it's definitely 4 days. I know how this works. That's exactly how it works. I understand. It's just it feels weird right now with the LA Galaxy and sort of where they're at, and not really knowing whether to put any faith whatsoever in this Colorado win. I know a bunch of people, and myself included, have said it was just Colorado. But
right.
But at the same time, I mean, there was some sparks there. There was at least something better than we have seen before. And again, it was probably because it was against Colorado.
Right. I mean, we get to change our commentary just a little bit. It's like, okay, this team needs to learn, this team needs to grow, but they actually scored goals, which is something that we haven't seen in a while. And a win at home is something we haven't seen in a long while. So it's nice to say something different for once.
Yes, in a year that has only seen 2 home wins, and fortunate for me, I was lucky enough to be at both of them. And I even got an away win in there. So, technically speaking, if you didn't leave Southern California and you didn't follow the LA Galaxy to any away games, you've only seen 2 home wins if you made it to every single home game. And I've seen 3, so maybe I should consider myself lucky over this year of what I've seen from the LA Galaxy compared to possibly what it could be. Is there any way anybody could ever feel lucky over what they've seen this year from the Galaxy?
No, not at all. I mean, I guess you just said you did, so there's that. But
But other than that, no, it doesn't work. No, I understand that. All right. Well, we get into the LA Galaxy's 3-0 win over Colorado. Obviously, we'll touch on a couple things there. We also have some LA Galaxy news coming up. A bunch of different interesting things that have sort of hit the wire that we can talk about. And then, of course, getting everybody prepared for the Seattle game. We'll also be taking your calls. So if at any point you think that you have an opinion that needs sharing on this show, which I think could be often, call into us, 949-734-4217, 949-734-4217, and FYI, just a heads up to everybody that a lot of times I don't see the calls when they first come in. So if you don't get through or I don't see you, just keep calling in and we'll see what we can do. But before we get any further, I want to remind you, Mr. Robert Mora is still holding his wonderful photography class. It's a sports workshop called On the Sidelines with LA Galaxy. And Robert Mora, this is something that's happening between September 15th and September 17th. This is just a great chance for you to get a chance if you've ever thought about shooting photographs. It's for skill levels of all different ranges, but if you ever thought about shooting sports photography, you could learn from Robert Mora and Canon's John Lawrence, and really they can take you through all these things. And the best part is you do get to shoot an LA Galaxy game coming up on September 16th. That is the game against Toronto FC. So Michael Bradley, Josie Althor, Sebastian Giovinco coming in to face off against Roman Alessandrini and Quattro dos Santos, or Dos Santoses, however you want to do your math there. But you'll be down on the sidelines to do that. So go to Canon, CANON.US/soccer. That's CANON.US/soccer. And if you use a special promo code, because Robert loves us so much over here, he knows our listeners would be grateful for any discount they could give. But if you type in promo code Galaxy, you can get $50 off an expensive course. But in a course that is 3 days of instruction and you really get a lot of bang for your buck on this, shooting with some of the top line cannon equipment. So again, canon.us/soccer. See Mr. Robert Moore there. Type in promo code Galaxy. Save yourself $50 off of that. All right, so we get to the Colorado game now, Britt. Lots of things to go over. Just general thought from you, at least, on this game. What did you like? What didn't you like? What should we make a big deal about, and what should we not?
Okay, so obviously Gyasi Zardes scoring goal is kind of a big deal, especially when it hasn't happened in over a year.
Right.
3 goals is a big deal. I'm not sure if they've done that at all this season. I know scoring 1 goal has been a struggle for most of the time, but I think the biggest thing for me is a clean sheet and a little bit more defensive cohesiveness than we've seen all year.
Yeah, for me, and I wrote an article on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can go see it there. The defense really is sort of the quiet story of this. Anytime your offense scores 3 goals, Britt, you're absolutely right. They should be the main lead of the story. And Zardes and Alessandrini and Emmanuel Boateng get the 3 goals. That's great for the LA Galaxy. That's what you want to see. Zardes looked a lot more dangerous. I will also say that I think he squandered so many chances in this game that the Galaxy probably could have had 3 or 4 more goals. It really was sort of maybe more of luck than anything else for the LA Galaxy getting the 3 goals. They deserved to win. They look like the better team. They look like the more dangerous team, Britt. But overall, you look at the shots that they took and sort of how they gained some of those goals. I mean, Zardes did a great job of drawing the penalty kick. That's fine. We look at that. Hey, yay, good job. That was great. And Alessandrini
I think that was
yeah.
Sorry, I think that was a little unnecessary actually by McMath to foul him to begin with. If you notice the player that's coming for the ball and it's a player that hasn't scored in over a year, I don't know if it's really essential to throw an extra elbow out there.
Yeah,
but
he did sort of lunge out into Zardes' zone there, and then Zardes saw it coming and was like, "Oh, this is going to be great! Can't wait!" And ate it all up. And it was for people who complain about VAR. By the way, I will say that play was reviewed, Britt, as all penalty kicks are. And it was determined not to need a review because it was correct. It was a correct call. So the LA Galaxy technically won a VAR challenge on that one.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. First time. I think they're 5-1 now. Or let's see. Oh, wait. They're 1-5 if you're going wins and losses. So that's a good thing for them. But you look at all the chances that were created, and I know you and I were talking today, sort of sharing some, stats, nerds, geeks, charts and graphs of things that probably most people don't look at. But if you go look at the dashboard of the successful passes and where the LA Galaxy actually completed their passes and even crosses and key passes, and I know it goes over most people's heads, but you get into the final third, Britt, and what do you see whenever you're looking at some of these charts?
It's completely empty compared to the defensive side of the field. So it's kind of impressive that 3 goals were scored in this game, honestly.
Yeah, because you look at the passes and even the assists that happened and came in. I mean, you can look at the Zardes assist and say that it was lucky. I don't think that he planned on it going back to Boateng, but it did. And then Boateng did a great job of finishing it, so that's great. Alessandrini and the PK, and then Zardes is one. That's a good cross from Alessandrini. It's a good finish. That was probably the best goal that they created in terms of that. But again, like, if you look at probably what the expected goals were, and I didn't even look at this, but just looking at the chances that they created over the night, maybe their expected goals was a little over 1. So it just seems like, yes, it was Colorado. The Galaxy probably got a little lucky from the chance that they've been unlucky so far. So for me, if you take all of that into consideration, then I look back and I look at the defense. And you had Bradley Diallo filling in now for the rest of the year, probably for Pele Van Aanholt. You have Daniel Steres. You had Dave Romney, and you had Ashley Cole back there, and John Kempen in goal. John Kempen made 2 saves, Britt. But I mean, the defense, I think, played relatively well against a rather toothless Colorado team again. I think I have to keep going back to that preface. Is that, you think that's fair?
I think that's very fair. I think that there aren't many teeth in this Colorado team. I think that's a great way to put it. But at the same time, Kempen's been in goal for this is his 3rd game now in goal with under Siggy, and he allowed 5 in the 2 games before this. So a clean sheet is really a big deal, even if Colorado only got 2 shots on frame.
Yeah, and you say that, and we've seen that John Kempen has let in a bunch of goals if you go back and look at the stats, and then if you watch those games, I don't think anybody blames John Kempen for any of those. So it was the defensive part of that, and a big part of this defense, as much as I know people hate to say it, Britt, a big part of this defense definitely has to be Jermaine Jones. And the positioning that Jermaine Jones was playing in this game and how he's able to protect Steres and Romney and how that allows Diallo and Cole to get up the field and not have the LA Galaxy get countered so easily, which is what we've seen for most of the year.
Right.
So
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So I mean, the defense really for me is one of the better points. And this is the funny thing now. I mean, I've written now 2 articles talking about, Dave Romney and Daniel Steres and how their partnership is really working. And then I talk about the defense and Jermaine Jones sitting in front of them. And then, we all know that Michael Ciani is now training with the club and that he will be coming in for probably Dave Romney here pretty shortly. It almost feels like a little step backwards. It's like you have these guys that are developing, and granted, I think that Steres got turned a whole bunch in the New York City game, and I think that Romney has had his problems whenever they paired together, and I think that they know each other, but they're not that familiar with each other in terms of they haven't played with each other recently, and so they're really just still trying to do that. But Siggy Schmidt gave them directions in this, and they gave it with Jermaine Jones as well, is to take a couple steps back, is not hold as high a line, to keep the plays in front of you. And if you saw in this particular game in Colorado, you didn't see Daniel Steres getting drawn out and turned, which is what happened in the New York City game, and you didn't have that happen with Dave Romney, and for the most part, the Colorado was not able to get behind them, which might be a rather interesting strategy against teams that don't have creative playmakers who can make a play in front of those back 4. So all in all, I'm okay. But I mean, what else? What other parts of this defense do we really? I mean, does Joao Pedro deserve any credit? How much credit does John Kempen really deserve on this, Britt?
I mean, I guess there isn't a whole lot of attacking prowess, and there's not much that you can give the goalkeeper. But I think that just the pairing of Romney and Steres, and they're getting to know each other, and I think that it's just finally congealing a little bit more, because this defense has been a rotating door all season, and if there's a way for the team to kind of get some stability, at least until Ciani comes in and replaces one of them, to rotate that door one more time. But just with the amount of injuries this defense has had, I think some sort of stability would be really nice, and it's starting to show, I think.
Whenever you go through some of the stats in this game ends up being a lot more even than it turned out to be, which is funny. Again, this is why stats sort of don't tell the whole story. If you watch that game, you saw the Galaxy look like the dominant team in this, and they were. They didn't dominate in possession, by the way. Colorado actually held the advantage in possession. In duels won, just the 50-50 chances. Colorado won more of those than the LA Galaxy did, and whether or not that has anything to do with the fact the Galaxy were up 2-0 or 1-0 as it goes along, also says something about how some of these things have happened. Overall shots, Colorado had 10 shots, only 2 on target, and Kempen saved both of those. Galaxy got 6 on target out of 9 total shots. So there's probably a lot more even in this game than people want to realize, and for that reason, I think that it's extremely important for people not to take very much from this game, which I think everybody has been cautioning, and I don't think there's a whole bunch of people who are jumping up and down. But at the same time, Britt, it was Colorado, and they're the worst team in Major League Soccer, and they probably proved it.
Right.
So now that we do that and we move on, I mean, what lessons do we take from this game now that the LA Galaxy have to go up against Seattle? Is there anything that you see that can translate directly over to that game, just in terms of what you want to pull away, even if it's not for the Seattle game, but for games going down the future? What were the important takeaways from this particular game?
I would say that Gyasi's not as cursed as everyone seems to believe. He can actually score a goal, and that troll is lifted off his back, as Ziggy said in the post-game commentary. I think that's one big thing where you could tell that he was getting frustrated that hadn't happened yet, and so for this to happen against an easy team might be kind of what he needed to move forward with that. Right. I think that's one big takeaway.
Yeah, and the LA Galaxy without Jonathan Dos Santos, without Giovanni Dos Santos as well. Lots of people want to pin the win on the fact that they weren't there. Any chance that you also side with that?
No, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, if it was against any other team, then I don't think the results would have gone the way it would. But it just so happened that they were going to miss the game against the easiest team in the league.
Yeah.
And I think that that's how that played out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't even, I don't even think Giovanni Dos Santos could have screwed that game up. I think that the LA Galaxy probably had it. Although it was definitely a takeaway for me. The change in formation, having Bradford Jamison the fourth up top with Gyasi Zardes is a big deal. That is a deal that needs to be sort of. If I'm taking maybe one or two things away from this game and looking forward, it's that Gyasi needs a strike partner up there. And even though they didn't combine directly, there were chances there with Jamison and with Zardes that they could have scored a couple goals. They didn't, but they could have. And so I think if you want a more dangerous Gyasi Zardes, you need to play somebody up with him. Siggy said about Gyasi Zardes, he says, anytime a goal scorer gets a goal, it takes the huge anvil, or whatever you want to call it, off his back. You got it off your back. Now you can walk a little prouder, you can be a little more relaxed, and you're a little more confident the next time you get there. So for him, it was a very important goal. So the big...
I said troll. You said anvil. I guess that's same thing, right?
In the post game, actually, Siggy struggled to find a particular item to put on Gyasi's back. So in this, he was searching for it. So the anvil, the piano, I think anything heavy sort of works on that. So that was how that works. The other thing that it was talking about, the defense, and this is Siggy's quote on it, and I'll put a little anecdote after this. He said, we did a better job of dropping our line. We talked a lot about how Dominique Badji has got speed, and I think last week against San Jose, Marco Urania did the same thing, and he also burned the U.S. in the same way, but we stepped up too high, too early in part of the field, so we talked about dropping our line, and then we hold our line. We're closer to our 18-yard box, so you saw John Kempen come off his line and collect probably 4 or 5 balls in the 18. So that's sort of Siggy, talking about the different things. Here's sort of the cool thing that I liked. A bunch of the guys, including Dave Romney, talked about, playing a little deeper and how that helped. And then after Dave Romney got done talking to reporters in the locker room, he went over and Siggy was walking through, and the two had another conversation about this exact same thing. Dave was sort of relaying, how dropping really helped. How he was able to cover guys. I'm being broad here because I have to sort of paraphrase what they said. It wasn't recorded. It was just sort of overheard what they're talking about. But they were also talking about Jermaine Jones and being able to come in there and sit. And Jermaine Jones has been an important part of this defense. Sort of the defensive resurrection. But he's also can be a weak link at the same time. So I think it's a little dangerous to sort of put all your chickens in one basket whenever you're talking about Jermaine Jones and what he would be able to do on the turf against Seattle on a much better, creativity-wise Seattle team. So it's interesting to see how these things progress and see where the confidence is starting to lie. And I'll tell you that the back line right now seems to have a little bit of a confidence, it seems to have confidence going forward. And if that's the case, going against Seattle might be the best thing. They're hitting Seattle at the right time then, perhaps, maybe. I don't know. They have Seattle and Toronto FC back-to-back. It's going to be difficult for these guys.
I'm not sure if there's a right time to hit those two teams back-to-back, but I guess off a 3-0 win is better time than any for this team.
I mean, John Kempen still thinks that they have a chance for the playoffs, all right? He said it in the game. Yeah, I know. Hey, I like it. Sometimes you want guys to just realize that, you need to go out and win every single game. So Kempen thinks if they win every game, which he said, after the loss to, I think, San Jose, he goes, hey, you know what? We have 9 games left. And if we win them all, that gives us 27 points, and that gets us in the playoffs. And I didn't check his math. But I like it. Give me some. Sometimes you just need guys who will run through a wall and not ask questions. I think John Kempen might be that guy. Or, he's the ultimate team guy. Either way, Britt, it works for me in terms of how he's thinking and what he's doing right now.
Right, that's fair. And that probably helped him get that starting spot if he still sees it that way as well.
Yeah, I think so. And it's one of the reasons maybe he is the starter right now. It was interesting to see Brian Rowe on the bench as part of the 18-man roster, of course, with Clement Diop out on international duty with Senegal. I don't know what's going to happen in Seattle. Don't know who travels. See if Diop takes back that second man spot or if it's Brian Rowe, who sits on the bench. So, I mean, these are sort of the different things that now it's the storylines, it's the things that we get to follow throughout the week. But a very interesting 3-0 win for the LA Galaxy. Little bits and pieces to pull away from that. I think Kevin and I on our Monday show really went a little bit further into what we saw, but we don't need to have that entire recap played again. So with that saying, let's move on and go to some of the questions that we had. And we did get an email question from one of our listeners, John. John writes in and he says, hey, Josh, and the rest of the CoG team. Just listen to the 9-4 show. Great discussion of some of the roster problems we have going into 2018, and maybe Gyasi Zardes should have earned a week off from the constant discussion of how he's not working out as a striker. But with Ashley Cole presumably headed out, Gyasi Zardes still under contract with no likely takers on the open market and a real traffic jam on the wings. Might there be any discussion about giving Zardes some time at left back, a la Robbie Rogers? Seems like it might play to some of his strengths: speed, strength, interest in staying in LA, while covering a few of his well-known weaknesses, which do we even need to name at this point? He goes, thoughts? Cheers, John from Venice, California. So John wants to know if Gyasi Zardes should play defense. This is interesting. I'll be honest, I didn't dismiss it right away, Britt. I would love to hear your thoughts on it first, though.
Okay, because I kind of did dismiss it pretty quickly. My only concern with him is the physicality on the ball. I think that a lot of the Galaxy's defenders do have that little extra push, I guess, to win the ball. There's that little extra strength. I know we've said on the show before that we've never really seen him angry, but I think that some of that is what's necessary to be a defender. That little extra push, that little extra no, it's not okay for me to lose that ball. And Gyasi losing balls in the midfield is something that's kind of common.
Right.
And I'm afraid if he's further back, that's going to be even more of an issue.
Yeah, I think that could be. Obviously, his possession skills and his first touch. I mean, defensively, that could be a liability. I'll say this. I've always found him to be a rather strong physicality player. Maybe I disagree with you a little bit on it in terms of that. He's not a guy who usually gets bowled over real easily. He's a guy who does have speed for recovery. But you're asking a guy to learn a new position, almost from... It's different whenever you take a midfielder and you move him back to, a left back. In this particular case, for me, Gyasi Zardes is more of a striker, and always sort of has been. I know on the U.S. men's national team, and there's plenty of people who think his better job is to be out wide because it gives him more time with the ball and less chance of somebody taking it with him. But if you saw what he was able to do with Robbie Keane, he's a second guy. He's a second striker. He's a finisher. If you put him in the proper spots, he can finish. I mean, the chart that we talked about in the Colorado game, Britt, is one of the main reasons, that we can sort of criticize this entire LA Galaxy season, is that I really don't think there has been a bunch of big chances for the LA Galaxy that they've overall missed. They've certainly missed chances this year. Jack McBean missed one. Everybody points that one out every time to me. Earlier this season, there are chances this team has made, but overall there should be more chances being generated. The passes in the box just not happening. I gave credit to Emmanuel Boateng not that long ago for putting a whole bunch of crosses in the box, and he got criticized because they're saying that he didn't pass to anybody. And while I think that's a valid criticism, up to a certain point, the other point is that nobody's there to finish either. So, you're not seeing the LA Galaxy generate a whole bunch of chances, and in the Colorado game, maybe that was one of the biggest differences. The chances were there, and then the chances they had, they actually took and they actually scored on. So those are the things that, I'm looking for, and I think Gyasi Zardes is still that guy. He's just not the man. Just like Giovanni Dos Santos can't be the man, which is dangerous because you have a guy who's making a ton of money in targeted allocation money when Gyasi Zardes, and a guy who's making the most on the team in Giovanni Dos Santos as your designated player, and neither of those guys can be the guy. And if you're asking that to be Jonathan Dos Santos, he's not going to be the guy either. Roman Alessandrini is the closest we have to being the guy, the man, the guy who you can depend on to create and to score. That's Roman Alessandrini. Outside of him, there isn't somebody like that on the LA Galaxy team. And so, you need Zardes, I think, up top. You just need to have him paired with somebody who can be the guy. And the LA Galaxy don't have that, and I don't know that they're going to have that. Does any of that make sense, or do you disagree with me totally?
No, I agree with that part as well. Well, pretty much everything you said. I think that it's important to point out that the team is creating more chances under Siggy than they did with Kurt. I'm not sure exactly what the source of that was, but I know that the shots definitely have gone up. And there was some post-game commentary about it in the first few games under Siggy where the shots are happening. The scoring's not happening, but there's definitely more shots, and it looks like they're enjoying it more. And I think that's a big part of it, where the shots are happening, and in this last game, the goals started to happen. So I don't know if they found a way to turn it on. I don't know if it's something that they can carry over to the Seattle game, but I think that the shots are happening, and I think that they just need to figure out who's going to be at the end of those crosses that are happening as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Anyway, John, we appreciate the email. You can always email us at cornerofthegalaxy@gmail.com. Feel free to send those in at any time, and we'll be happy to take them. Let's go to I think we had another call come in, and let's see what this one. This is from Brian, and Brian says he has a loaded question. So let's see how loaded his question is. Here we go.
Hey, Josh, it's Brian. I have a simple question with a loaded preface to it all. With the hiring of Kurt Anolfo, with the hiring of Guinness, and Klein still at the helm, all the players just added to the team that don't have a lot of chemistry together, that have had many sportscasters and commentary on how they don't play together well. And with the NWSL team and all of these other things and the whole rebuilding effort 1 year prior to LAFC coming into town, I'm wondering how focused are the Galaxy on the scale 1 to 10 ascending? How focused are the Galaxy, and what's that focus on? Because right now it seems that the entire organization is scattered brain. Like, they don't know what direction they want to go into. The rebuilding effort was failed, which in my opinion shows that the academy is lacking that talent, which could be from the pools that they're pulling from. But that, and then you got the NWSL team. What was the purpose? The female academy, are we having an NWSL team that's going to be announced? Are we doing it for PR? And how does this all tie into the first team? What is the direction of the Galaxy? What is the focus?
All right, there's Brian's call. A lot of different things to cover there, Britt. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the girls' academy.
All right.
Go for it.
Okay, well, so here's what I understand to be true, and so I will give you that. From what I can tell, and from everybody I've talked to, and we've said it before on this show, is that the LA Galaxy Girls Academy has no chance of ever becoming an NWSL team, at least not right now. And from everybody I've talked about, the LA Galaxy have no interest in creating an NWSL team. So it certainly begs the question of why they have it. And for right now, my only answer that I can possibly give is that it is a PR move. Granted, it could be a very good PR move, but if you're looking in terms of focus, and this is sort of what Brian wanted to look at, Britt, if you're looking in terms of focus, that provides no focus on the senior team, and really it's more of, if you want to say it, it's a distraction. Because if you're not doing things to improve the senior team, if you're not doing it to make an NWSL team, which could generally, I mean, if you have those two working in concert, having an NWSL team and having an MLS team, strengthens the overall position of the franchise as itself. You could say that would be a goal worth working to. But being that I've heard of no reasonable chance of LA Galaxy starting an NWSL team, then it begs the question of why they're doing it. And if it's just a PR move, then I have to say that it seems like it's a PR move that's there to waste a lot of money. Because this is a fully funded academy system. It should be something that, I think, quite honestly, I think if the Galaxy are doing this, then they should look at doing an NWSL team. LAFC, Britt, sounds like they're going to do an NWSL team. So are the LA Galaxy going to be developing, talent for LAFC's NWSL team? Because that doesn't make any sense either. So either it doesn't make any sense and it's just a PR stunt, or people have told me that there's no chance there's an NWSL team coming, are wrong, and that the Galaxy and AEG do have a chance at doing that. And I hope that that's the case. I hope that they have a goal here from the NWSL team.
I think another thing to think about with this is community involvement. I know they do a lot of humanitarian efforts, things like that in the community, trying to get the community involved in soccer specifically. So I think that this is kind of opening up the doors to that a little bit. I know like having an all-male academy pretty much shuts the door for half the population of the area. So building that girls' academy kind of opens the door to that. So that might be another reason for this.
Yeah, I mean, and I can see that. I can understand that. Let's go to the next part, sort of what Brian is saying too, and maybe I can try to wrap it all up in one cohesive answer here at the end. But Brian talking about that the LA Galaxy Academy and the system that they have, and with the USL team and LA Galaxy too, don't have the talent. I don't think that's the case. They're picking from a soccer hotbed in Southern California. I think this year the team was set up to fail. I think that the players that were brought on, and even the guys who were promoted up, were guys who were not expected to play the amount of minutes they played, and they certainly weren't expected to play all together on the team at the same time. And the construction of the roster and the way that things happened this year led to this looking like the Academy and USL team are doing poorly. I'll tell you right now that whenever the LA Galaxy guys go back down, the guys like Ari Lassiter, Jack McBean, Bradford Jamieson, any of those guys who go back down and play for LA Galaxy 2, that LA Galaxy 2 suddenly has success again. So there's certainly talent there. Now, whether it's MLS talent, I don't know that we know the answer to that, but if you brought Gyasi Zardes up this year, Britt, you would say that he doesn't have MLS talent. There's a bunch of guys. Giovanni Dos Santos maybe doesn't have MLS talent because he certainly hasn't been providing a whole bunch of offense and doing amazing things in Major League Soccer either. The bottom line is when you look at this LA Galaxy team this year, I'm not so sure that you say this team is MLS caliber. It's just constructed poorly. And so, saying that the Academy doesn't have it, I think is too far. And saying, what is the LA Galaxy's focus is really what Brian is trying to get to on this, Brit. And I don't know if I have an answer, and I think that scares me a little bit right now.
Right. I was having a similar sentiment with you breaking it down right now. Is I'm not entirely sure there is a focus because it's kind of there's a few different paths they can take, and I think they've half-heartedly taken multiple paths. And hey, we're not going to bring anyone in from Europe, or hey, we're going to build up our youth, and neither of those have really come to fruition. So I think scatterbrained is kind of a good term for this season almost.
Yeah, it certainly seems like a team was put together without focus. I've said it a million times: is there's a bunch of different puzzle pieces for 7 different puzzles, and you're trying to make one picture out of it out there right now. That's just not going to happen. I'm concerned right now with the off season and seeing the amount of pieces that are locked in for me, and trying to understand where the focus comes from. Understanding that the LA Galaxy probably needed an offensive threat more than anything else, and they ended up getting a box-to-box midfielder, which, by the way, Jonathan Dos Santos might be the second best player on the team, next to Roman Alessandrini. So it wasn't a bad pickup. You upgraded at the spot, but you didn't necessarily upgrade in a place of need. And so then when you look at all the midfielders that the LA Galaxy have, you have to wonder if he was just, a surplus to requirements overall. And it seems that way because with Sebastian Lletget coming back, with Baggio Husidic, and you can make fun of Baggio all you want, but he's going to be a backup on the bench, and he's going to provide you depth next year whenever he is healthy. And if he can come off the bench even before the end of the season, that would be good for the LA Galaxy as well to provide, again, depth in that position. So Baggio Husidic will be there, but they're running out of places to play people. Maybe you expect Jermaine Jones not to come back, and that's fine, and I think that's a realistic expectation. But you're going to one of the things, Britt, that has been criticized this year is that the LA Galaxy don't have a veteran presence. And
right.
You already lost Van Dam. We'll see if Siani is sort of the veteran presence they can bring back. You're going to lose you're going to lose Ashley Cole. We're almost 100% certain of that. So Ashley Cole's gone. Jermaine Jones is going to be gone. You're losing veteran presence. So you're going to have to go out and find veteran replacements for those guys, and then you're talking about at positions all across the back line. You basically have a brand new back line again. There's real changes that are going to happen in the offseason that they're going to have to be focused on doing the right thing for the club in terms of the pieces they have and putting together a coherent plan, and I don't think they can do it.
I don't want to say that they can't do it because you're pretty much shutting down the offseason entirely with 8 or 9 games left in this season.
Yes.
So I don't know if I'm willing to say that they can't do it. I think that there needs to be real planning happening, and I think that Siggy and Dominic Kinnear are 2 great MLS minds who can do this if they get the support from higher up. But I think it's a little too early to say, hey, the off season's completely a wash.
No, shut it down. Shut it all down.
Shut it down completely.
Shut it
That's
down.
Fine.
Galaxy get relegated. That's what I mean. Here's the problem. What faith should I have? And you can tell me this. And again, I think we're still trying to answer Brian's question of where the focus is, and I think we're saying that there isn't one. But what faith do you have in the way that this team was completed or constructed in 2017? If things don't change majorly, which is you got Siggy Schmidt, you got Dominic Kinnear in there, so that's certainly something. But what faith do you have that there's enough correction already taken place this year to fix it in the offseason?
That is a loaded question. See, the things that are permanent in my eyes, they
Right.
have to build a team around the Dos Santos brothers, because now that the second one's here, neither of them are going anywhere.
Right.
I think that's pretty well understood, right?
By everybody,
Um,
but the front office. But yes, go ahead.
right. But I think I don't want to say disappointing because he hasn't touched the field yet, but I was really looking forward to the Steries Romney combination going into next season. I think that they could hold it down and make it work. But Siani being a center back is kind of breaking up that duo that, I don't know, I had this bromance in my head with these two.
No, I mean, there's something to that. I understand. No, there's lots of people I think who feel that way, and I think I'm in your corner with that. That I would have liked to seen what Steres and Romney can do, only because I got to see what Omar and AJ could do. So why can't the Galaxy build another one of those? What's stopping them? And the fact is they're cheap. So if you don't have to spend money there, you can spend money somewhere else, which means that you could upgrade a position that maybe is more of a need. But I certainly think that there is enough concern with the pairing of those two that you worry about it. Okay.
Right. I think that's fair.
Okay. So go ahead, continue.
To answer your question, there. I'm still going to say that it's too early to shut down the off season, but you make a good point that there's a lot of changes that need to happen, and there's really not much stability to go off of.
I just want to listen. Let's give credit to the front office for what they did. That they got right. Roman Alessandrini home run, that was great, and the guy is absolutely an LA Galaxy player. Fans love him. He scores goals. He's everything you want. And as Siggy said, he's one of the few guys in the league who can make the first defender, miss, almost every time. So they got that right. I think they hit a home run on Joao Pedro too. I think he's going to be really good. I really like him. He's young. I like the hair. I like his vibe. I like everything about him. He just needs to get a little bit more confident. And I think he's been growing in this MLS season as it's going. So I like Joao Pedro. So yes.
Sorry, can I jump in here? I think that he needs help. I think that he can't do it on his own, and he needs the right pairing. He said before that he would prefer to play with Baggio over Jermaine Jones.
Right.
I don't know if it's worth it to stick that out. I don't know if I would be totally comfortable with the two of them in there together either, especially because now you have to throw Jonah in the mix.
Right.
But yeah, I think that he's yet another Galaxy player that needs a good buddy to work with him.
They need a piece. So you have these pieces. Okay, so here's so I think that they got Joao Pedro right, and I agree. I think he needs the right piece. I think Jonathan Dos Santos could be that piece. They need to play together more. And if that happens, then I'm happy with that central pairing. I think Jonathan Dos Santos is going to be a good signing, but I'm not going to give the front office credit for that because I don't think he was necessary. So they don't get that one. They missed on Jermaine Jones as far as I'm concerned. He's been good these last couple games. I want to tip my hat. Absolutely. But for the amount of money they are paying him and the amount of games he's missed, that's a miss. That's an absolute miss. Trying to build around, here's a tough one. Pele van Aanholt. Do you blame the front office for that one?
No.
You can't. I can't. That kid, he was so good. What you want from a defender is that you don't worry about him. And as soon as Van Aanholt went in there and I watched him for the first game, I was like, okay, cool. Don't have to pay attention to that anymore unless there's an issue. And he was very good. And he got injured and he's probably not coming back. And if the LA Galaxy do sign him to an extension, then I question that somewhat, especially coming off the injuries. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
You don't think that his play was enough to extend?
His play was enough to extend, absolutely. And I think if he was healthy going into the offseason, it's not even a question, and you go ahead and you sign him for the year extension. But right now, with the injury that he had, out 6 to 9 months, won't be ready for the beginning of next season. That's taking him into next season, even by more than a little ways. So you're going to start without a right back. I hate to break it to the LA Galaxy. That's what they tried to do this year. And it didn't work out well for him. So I don't know that you can have the patience. Plus, you're taking a risk again, Britt, and we know about the risks of him getting re-injured or injuring something else because of the injury he had. The injury he had is not a small injury, and that's difficult. And I think you would have a tough time if you were the front office. Sell that to LA Galaxy fans after all the injuries they had this year. Sell Pele van Aanholt coming off an ACL, MCL. To be your starting right back and that you're going to depend on him for next year.
I'm having a hard time giving up on players after ACL tears.
Right.
Just because I mean, maybe it's just because of my background in sports medicine where I understand the rehab that goes into these situations and that they can come back. It's possible that they don't come back to 100% like they were before, but they can. And I'm very, very hesitant to give up on a player once they have a knee injury.
I agree. This is the hard part. So people got all over me on Twitter whenever I said it would be a bad move for the LA Galaxy to extend his contract. Right? And certainly some people I think have the correct idea, which is you let him go through rehab, you don't sign him. The Galaxy are paying for his rehab. It's not like they're kicking him out on the curb. All right, that's not happening. He's going to be taken care of. So he has to rehab. He has to do all those things. You do that. You let him rehab at StubHub Center. You give him all the support that he needs, that type of thing. And then whenever he comes back, you take a look at him and say, "Is this a guy we need now?" Because if I'm the Galaxy, I'm out shopping for a right back. So in the offseason, if I don't find one, maybe he's a fallback position. But God, how can you sell starting the season without a right back again to a team that is probably going to have its worst franchise year ever, and to a team that started without a right back last year and the sort of circus that was surrounding that? How can you not go into the 2018 season with a plan, Britt? That's the problem.
I mean, I think the issue that everyone had with the Robbie Rogers phenomenon was the lack of transparency.
Right.
I think that was kind of the bigger issue rather than the injury itself.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think it was like not being transparent with, hey, this is where he is, and hey, he may never play soccer again. I understand that there's all kinds of psychology that goes into that for Robbie himself, but I really think that being more upfront about it was really what needed to happen in that situation.
I agree.
And that's kind of what turned everything sour.
I agree with that. Well, the problem is that there was no transparency. Then you trade AJ, so you had a right back, and then you don't have a right back, and now you know that you're not going to have a right back, and so then you have to go out and find somebody to fix that hole, and they finally do, and then he gets injured again. It just, you can't, in my mind, you cannot start the season 2018 without a right back on that roster in January playing the guy who's going to be the starter there, and unfortunately with Pergl van Aanholt, you don't have to sign him. He's only on a 6-month contract, so why risk it again? I agree with you. I like the guy. I wish he will play soccer again. I know he will, but for the LA Galaxy, you can't roll the dice again. At least that's my opinion with that. So
He'd be great depth.
Okay, but how much? See, this is the part. We don't even know how much he's making. So
Right.
if it depends on that number in order if you say, okay, he could be great depth. Could you get him at $110,000 a year? Figuring that we're assuming that he's making around $225,000 a year right now, would that be worth it? Maybe you can make that work on the cap. I don't disagree with you at all because I think you're going to have some players that you could make a depth player. If you do that, then your team gets deeper. That's the best idea that I've seen so far. But you have to get it at the right price now.
Right.
That's the most important part. This is this is nothing new to people who listen to this podcast, Brett. I tell them all the time, tell me the trade. Oh, this is horrible. I can't believe they brought in Ciani. They're paying too much for him. Really? How much are they paying him? Oh, that's right. Nobody knows. So you don't know the answer to that question yet. It could be that they're paying him no money. They didn't use targeted allocation money, so technically he's already a savings on Jelle Van Damme.
Right.
But how much money is he making? Is he making just below the max of 486? We don't know. We know it's below that, but we don't know how much below it. So those are the different things that we sort of look at. So anyway, Brian, I think the answer is that there's not a good answer for you. That I don't know that the Galaxy have a plan, and they certainly had a plan this year, and we saw how that went. So I don't know how much you could trust their plan or their focus from that. So that's sort of my answer to that. Let's go on to LA Galaxy team news as we sort of work our way towards the Seattle game. I talked about it earlier, and we were just talking about the man as well. Michael Ciani is training with the LA Galaxy. Some quotes from LA Galaxy insiders Adam Serrano's talk with Ciani. Just some interesting things I'll go over. This is Ciani saying, they called me and they told me that LA was interested, and directly I said yes. It's a great team, a great city, and my wife and kids want to come here. I played throughout Europe, and I decided to come here. Let's see. He goes, I know the team is in a difficult place right now, but I know with my experience, I can bring something new. I can drive the defense, and I can speak a lot with my teammates. We'll try to bring something else for the Galaxy, basically saying, there's something else there. I do like, Britt, the first thing that he said, that his wife and kids are coming with him, so that means that there's less of a chance that somebody's angry, and somebody has to stay home and different things. I don't know. Maybe that's just me seeing that, Stefan Ishizaki went home, although, his wife was out there with him. So I guess it doesn't mean anything. But anyway, he's bringing it. we're not going to have a Jelle Van Damme situation all over again, which was difficult for the team to sort of handle this year. So that was good. This is Siggy Schmidt talking about Ciani coming in, and he says, when we lost Jelle Van Damme, we had an opening there, and we needed a defender. We didn't feel by waiting until next year that it was best situation for our team. We are lucky enough to come up with Michael, and he was interested in coming, and the deal fell in place. What is important now is that we don't put him on the field too early, and we give him a chance to acclimate and get fit. I want the fans to see what he's capable of. Let's see. We felt with our team, and in fairness to our fans, we felt like we still wanted to give ourselves a chance to make the playoffs this year, so it was important that we bring in defender like Ciani. Okay. I like the playoffs. That's cool. You can talk about it. Everybody knows they're not there. Here's just sort of the different things. I don't know that bringing Ciani in again when we already talked about with Daniel Steres and Dave Romney sort of developing. I don't know if that is going to be best in long term. He's 33 years old too, Britt. He's an older guy. I mean, he has to be as good as Jelle Van Damme for anybody really to take this seriously. Is that saying too much or not enough, or where do you lie on that?
I mean, are we talking 2016 Jelle Van Damme or 2017 Jelle Van Damme?
We're talking 2016 Jelle Van Damme.
I think that there's a definite difference between the two. I mean, if he's 2016 Jelle Van Damme, sign me up. But if he's 2017 Jelle Van Damme, then I think that's a problem. And I don't know. It sounds like Siggy's very, very clear on. Let's take it back a few steps. He wants the best players on the field, and I think that that's why we saw a goalkeeping change with Kempen coming in for Rowe. I think that he's going to do something similar with this backline and making sure that Ciani is ready to come in before he replaces a backline that's starting to gel a little bit.
Right. I agree with you, and he has to anyway. I think the last time Ciani played was on the end of May. So,
oh, yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, so it's been a long time. It's going to take a while for him to come back. So you have Seattle, then you have Toronto. The good news for defenders is they don't have to run as much. So for the most part, their fitness usually takes a little bit of a less of a time of, say, a midfielder. It's kind of like the same as a striker. I always see that a striker and defender are kind of the same in terms of fitness-wise. Strikers maybe have to have a little more fitness sometimes. The defenders usually don't have to run for as long as the midfielders is what I think I'm trying to get to, although that can change certainly with guys who go up and down the wing constantly. So that's something to watch for. So Ciani could be available for Seattle. He won't be. He has all of his paperwork. All of his stuff is in, so he is able to play with the team whenever they feel he is ready. But you can see that Siggy is clearly trying to hold off on that. So guy played in Spain, Italy, Belgium, France, so he has been around. He brings a veteran presence, Britt, something I just complained about. So I certainly think that he can do well for the LA Galaxy. He plays the part for sure. So you have Augie over there, your dog, creating problems for you already?
He is. I don't think he liked what you just said.
He doesn't like that. Hey, Augie, listen. Ciani needs his rest. All right, let him get fit, and then he can play. We'll tell Siggy how that goes. Let's go on to a next sort of interesting news bit and sort of things that have been falling through this week and coming to the forefront. The 15-year-old Efren Alvarez. This is the guy who signed with LA Galaxy 2 from the academy. This is the star academy player. This was the big deal whenever LA Galaxy 2 was able to actually land him and keep him away from other teams. So he has a professional contract with LA Galaxy 2 now. The 15-year-old Efren Alvarez trained with the senior team today. That's a big deal. Doesn't mean he's going to play. He's 15 years old. But he would have to be loaned up as well. But at the same time, this is a big deal. This is what you want to see happening. These are the things that make a difference. So a 15-year-old goes out and trains with the senior team, and from Adam Serrano's report, said he didn't look out of sorts. He was able to compete out there. So if you want to know what a young kid is on a senior roster, 15 and 16 is a young kid on a senior roster. So if he could make it up into 16, 17 years old and be a starter for the LA Galaxy, I think you're cooking with fire here. And from all reports, he seems to be the real deal. So just sort of interesting happenings there with the LA Galaxy senior team, and maybe not indicative of him playing anytime soon, but at the same time, an interesting turn of events for the 15-year-old. So that's good. Here goes into Britt's wheelhouse here. LA Galaxy defender Pele Van Aanholt undergoes successful surgery. I want to clarify again, because there is differing statements out there from differing people, and I got told two different things whenever I asked. His injuries, Pergl van Aanholt has a torn ACL and a torn MCL. All right, at one time it was said there was a torn meniscus, but it is an MCL. Okay, so an ACL and MCL tear. He underwent successful anterior ACL and MCL repair at the Kerlan-Jobe Institute at Cedars-Sinai in Santa Monica, the club announced in a press release. All right, Van Aanholt is expected to miss 6 to 9 months following the surgery. And so he has been placed on the season-ending injury list, which is funny because the guy who he came in to replace, Britt, is also on the season-ending injury list. I wanted you to give any insight you could into this ACL-MCL tear and what's in store for Pergl.
Right. So just the kind of confusion there with meniscus and MCL. The MCL is kind of like the ligaments that connect the outside of the knee. There's the lateral and the medial. So the medial is the inside of the knee. The meniscus is kind of just the cartilage that separates the shin bone from the thigh bone so that they don't rub on each other. Really, I'd say that meniscus is a little bit shorter of a return time than the MCL repair would, but ultimately either of those would really be waiting on the repair for the ACL to come in place. So I think that discrepancy isn't that big of a deal, but it is good to get some clarification on it just to clear things up a little bit more. 6 months is very, very, very fast. I would definitely say that it's going to be along the longer range of recovery for that.
And that's what we've seen so far. So far, the returns and the timelines that we at Corner of the Galaxy have put out, that Kevin Baxter at the LA Times has put out, along with help from Britt here, the times that we have put out have been more accurate than anything the club has announced. I will say that again because that has been the absolute truth so far. We had Jermaine Jones staying out a lot longer than he did whenever he came back. We had Baggio Husidic and Sebastian Lletget staying out a lot longer than the club said was coming back. So, hey, cook the home books. I understand how it is, but again, understand the severity of these injuries and how long it takes for these guys to come back. Speaking of Baggio Husidic and Sebastian Lletget, Baggio Husidic has been training in part and could be back to full training next week, maybe even the week after that. So if he goes into full training, you're talking about only a matter of time before he's able to return to the starting lineup again. That's great news for Baggio Husidic. Sebastian Lletget is out of the boot. I think we reported that a long time ago, but doesn't look close to returning right now. The prognosis is that if he does return, it will be in October. I think the club is hoping that they can just get him back to training with the club by the end of the year because that could set them up for next year. But I spoke to the club today, and these are the updates that they gave me. Right now, I would say that it's unlikely Sebastian Lletget returns, and quite honestly, why would you want him to return? There's no reason for it. The LA Galaxy are, for all intents and purposes, out of the playoffs, unless they go on an 8-game winning streak like John Kempen said. So we'll see how that works out. Any surprises there, Britt, with Baggio and Sebastian?
Not really. I know the time frame's been a little fuzzy on them as well. For Baggio, it's really a lot of just general fitness. With a fracture, it's not as much. I mean, it's just basically completely shutting him down until that heals. I can't remember. Did he have surgery to repair it? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but it's pretty much just getting that fitness back, letting it heal completely, which took a few months, and then just getting that fitness back. So full training could still be a few weeks until he sees the field.
Well, that's good. It's good news for him, though, that he's coming back. And Sebastian Lletget is progressing as I think everybody expected. I don't think it's slower than expected. It's just this is the length of that injury. That's a nasty injury. And that is the injury, by the way, because I keep seeing people complain about this. And people need to screw your heads on right for a second. There are plenty of things to complain about this year. The correct reporting of Sebastian Lletget's injury is not one of those things that you should be all flipped out about because it was absolutely 100% correct. The Liz Frank injury presents itself as a sprain until you go and look at it and realize that all the bones in the top of the foot are broken and that's the problem. And then he had to go in and have surgery. So the fact that they said it was a sprain and then 2 days later it was, oh my God, he's probably out for most of the season was exactly what should have happened. There are plenty of things to complain about. This is not one of them. Stop complaining about this. All right? Sorry. I get Twitter responses sometimes that make me angry. We had an interesting one. This isn't necessarily Galaxy related. It still is Galaxy related, but it's more of a tangent. Clement Diop and Senegal. We said that Diop was away on international duty. He's been the backup keeper for Senegal now for I think the last couple of showings. So Diop and Senegal. But here's the interesting thing: FIFA has ordered a replay of Senegal's game with South Africa, and with a game in which South Africa won 2-1. The reason that they won 2-1 was they were helped by a penalty awarded by Ghanaian referee Joseph Lamptey for a non-existent handball, and FIFA has now determined that they're banning that guy for life, the referee, because he has been involved in match fixing. This goes back to the fact that he's been accused of some of this stuff before in different games. It seems like they've sort of slow-rolled this in terms of finally suspending him, but it goes out. Here's the crazy thing. FIFA normally doesn't order replays. Now there's going to be a November international break, which Diop will, of course, be free for because the LA Galaxy won't be in the playoffs. But they will actually go back and replay this game. They hardly ever replay these games. The really interesting thing is Senegal is just 1 point back from co-leaders Burkina Faso and Cape Verde. So they're right there in sort of the thick of things, and they now have 3 games remaining instead of 2. So this could really change things in that group. It's just interesting. Diop is likely going to be away on national team duty in November to go and play this replay. I just thought it was interesting, and that's I don't know. Have you ever heard of them replaying a game?
No, I haven't. I know there's been it was from the handball to the PK, which ended up being the game-winning goal, correct? So
Yep.
That changes things completely. So even if they just take the goal away, it gets really sloppy. So replaying the whole thing, you would have to think that it's more than just that one PK call. And also, why was he put on this game if he has a history of things in the past?
Yeah.
Is another question I have.
It's shady. It's shady. That's for sure. It certainly isn't something that I think is indicative of the entire game, but we certainly know what happens. I always think it's interesting whenever I hear of match fixing and stuff like that, if that happens in Major League Soccer. I read a book about match fixing and how easy it is and how you can sort of do it. I'm not saying I've done it. That's not what I was trying to. I sort of feel like it was like a how-to book all of a sudden. This is not a how-to book. But no, it was very interesting the way it goes. And so, you almost wonder if any of this stuff ever happens in Major League Soccer. I feel like we're not really a soccering nation here, Britt, until we get sort of at least accused of match fixing in an MLS game, right? Because how could you ever tell if an MLS game is match fixed with how horrible some of the referees are, right?
With very little interest in the games and all of that. So you think that people need to be interested
in betting money. Well, there's Indonesia is, I think, still bets on Major League Soccer. I actually got offered to write articles. Somebody was going to pay me articles to write about Major League Soccer for the Indonesian market for people who are going to bet on Major League Soccer. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. All right.
But at the same time, you have VAR coming into play that, if you ask some Galaxy fans, that it might already be happening in the league.
So VAR actually gets rid of match fixing, though, doesn't it? Because you can't call a penalty that's not a handball in MLS because it would get reviewed until they review it and it sees it hit somebody's knee and it doesn't actually hit that and they still call it a penalty. Then I guess it could still be match fixing. But it takes.
Are you saying that all of the Galaxy's VAR calls have been accurate?
Almost all of them. Almost all of them. There was one that's borderline, but I still probably would have sided with the referees on it. But borderline means that it probably shouldn't have been overturned away from the LA Galaxy. So, that's the only argument. That was the penalty kick that was called on Jonathan Dos Santos, which was originally ruled outside the box, but after VAR, look, it's borderline. And that's the problem, is that it shouldn't be. It's supposed to be clear and obvious. So if it's not clear and obvious, then you can't do it. And there's an angle issue. Like, I wonder how much they're teaching referees about camera angles and a whole bunch of other things. Anyway, side tangent. That's sort of where your LA Galaxy news is. I know, Britt, before you and I got started, we were talking about the LA Galaxy schedule and looking at it. It's not an easy road. Not an easy road. What the next
not at all.
5 games are not easy. And something I think we've talked about on other podcasts, but you have Sunday, obviously, going away to Seattle. You are home to Toronto FC. So you got the leader in the West and the leader in the East. You have Atlanta United, who is a playoff position in the East, away. That's a midweek. Then you have a Sunday game away to Sporting Kansas City, who's one of the top teams in the West. Another top team in the West, the Houston Dynamo, on Wednesday. So you're playing Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday.
within 15 days.
That's crazy. And they're all difficult games. These are not easy. Even the Real Salt Lake game that ends September 30th, that ends September for the LA Galaxy, is going to be a difficult game because Real Salt Lake is a better team than they were at the beginning of this year.
Right.
So there's no breaks here. And I posted the defense thing and I talked about points and things, and people wanted to start saying how many points they thought the LA Galaxy would get. And there were people saying the Galaxy will win like 3 games out of these remaining 8 games. And I would like to drink whatever they're drinking, because there's no way that you can easily call 3 wins on this. You caught the Colorado win, which was one of them. Minnesota is the other one that you have at home on October 15th. And other than that, I can make an argument for every other game being a loss for the LA Galaxy.
Right, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of points to be gained. I mean, you're talking about 6 more points the LA Galaxy can get out of a possible 24 points. That's, the times we live in. Last year, the LA Galaxy were competing for a Western Conference spot. They ended up finishing 3rd in the Western Conference, got beat by Colorado. 2 teams at the very bottom. So you saw the 2 teams who were competing for a Western Conference last year play for basically the wooden spoon, the very bottom of the league last week. It's Major League Soccer. It's one of the reasons that I can say you can't count the LA Galaxy out for next year, Britt, is because everything could change on the turn of a dime. But still, this is a tough schedule. It seems like all the tough games were sort of saved for this last string, and they're all back to back to back. So I don't know. How many games do you give the LA Galaxy winning out of the next 8?
So winning, I would 2. So that RSL and Minnesota game, I think there's a chance that they could steal something out of Houston and Dallas.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm saying all 3 points, but I think they could at least get a point out of those 2 games.
They might. Dallas is on the downturn now. Houston at home, though, I think is still unbeaten at home, and you have to play them away, so you have to do that on a midweek. You have to go to FC Dallas, which is not the place you want to be playing either. So the home games remaining, and there are only 3 home games remaining. You have Toronto FC, which is a definite loss.
Yes.
With how good they are. Now, granted, it's a team that has to travel all the way across the road. I can talk myself into a draw in that game, which is crazy because you have a team like Toronto FC who should be running over everybody, but they should lose that game.
I think one thing that needs to be mentioned with that is that for this upcoming game against Seattle, both Alessandrini and Jermaine Jones are on a yellow card warning.
Yes.
So if either of those people get a yellow card, then you can almost essentially count out the Toronto game.
Which is interesting because those guys have been playing on yellow card warnings now for it seems like forever. So they're still there. So that's how that works. So they will still be. Eventually, they're going to be suspended. If you're Alessandrini, I think you try to get the yellow card in the Toronto game, so that way you can miss having to go to Atlanta midweek, which is on turf, and then you can play away at Sporting Kansas City. I mean, if you're going to be smart about these things, you got to pick where you want to go and how you want to do it. So it'll be interesting. Maybe Jones picks the same game as well. Anyway, that's what the LA Galaxy schedule is coming down. It is tough. There are not a lot of points there. The LA Galaxy currently sit at 9th in the Western Conference. They are approximately 11 points, actually exactly 11 points out of a playoff spot right now, with FC Dallas holding down the 6th and final spot with 37 points. Huge gap. LA Galaxy sit at this sort of rift in the standings. You have LA Galaxy, Minnesota United, and Colorado Rapids, 26, 25, and 22 points respectively. And then if you want to go up to 8th place, it is 9 points difference. 9 points difference between 9th place and 8th place right now. So for the LA Galaxy to even climb up into an almost a playoff spot, they basically have to win 3 games just to get 9 points out of that and sort of climb their way up. So that's what we have with that. Again, really tough schedule, and the standings are not in the LA Galaxy's favor. Not to, of course, be a Debbie Downer, but the season is essentially over for the LA Galaxy. So it's all about playing the spoiler now. And one of the teams that they could definitely spoil here, Britt, is the Seattle Sounders. So do you mind if I give it a nice little preview for everybody?
Do the thing.
Do the thing. Hit the button. All right, here we go. Let's talk a little bit about this LA Galaxy game against the Seattle Sounders. Your LA Galaxy will face off against the Seattle Sounders on Sunday, September 10th, 2017, a 6 p.m. kickoff on Fox Sports 1. Siggy Schmidt will return to Seattle for the first time since agreeing to part ways with the Sounders. He was with that club for 7.5 years. This will be the third meeting of the year between the two clubs. LA Galaxy are 0-1-1 in their first two, with the last game being a 0-0 draw. That was Schmidt's very first game in charge, and both of those games so far this year have been played at StubHub Center. Seattle comes off a 1-1 draw at home with the Portland Timbers back on August 27th, so they've had some time off, a game that saw defender Tolo get a red card, and he will not be available for this LA Galaxy game. Seattle Sounders are on a 9-game undefeated streak at home. It's their third longest in club history and had an 11-game unbeaten streak stopped earlier this year at home. The Galaxy, surprisingly, are coming off a 3-0 win over the Colorado Rapids, and the win ended a 10-game winless streak both overall and at home. And the goals they scored ended a 372-minute scoreless streak, the second longest in club history, 525 minutes in 2006, and also ended a 378-minute goalless streak at home. They also ended a 4-game home shutout streak that was the first time the Galaxy have been shut out in 4 consecutive games in club history. For the first time in 2 games, the Galaxy have no one suspended, which is a good thing, and all 3 of the Galaxy's international players are back: Jonathan, Gio Dos Santos, and Clement Diop. Overall, the LA Galaxy are 9-6-8 against the Sounders, and at Seattle actually have a winning record of 4-3-4. So here's the big question, Britt. Can the LA Galaxy do anything against the high-powered offense and the winning streak, or at least the undefeated streak of the Seattle Sounders at home in Seattle? They're not good. The LA Galaxy are not good. Seattle is good. What do you see in this game?
Yeah, that's like the main thing I have highlighted in my notes is that one team's coming into this with an 11-match unbeaten streak, where the Galaxy just broke their 10-game losing streak or winless streak. So, I mean, the odds are definitely not in the Galaxy's favor. I want to be optimistic and say that the Galaxy maybe can get a point out of this, but I don't know if I can say that with a straight face.
You certainly have seen the LA Galaxy go up to Seattle in games that maybe they shouldn't have won, they have won, or at least drawn there. You certainly look at the playoffs with Juninho scoring the goal that sort of killed Seattle's run. I think Seattle was on their way to an MLS Cup if Juninho doesn't score that goal. There have been a lot of times where the Galaxy have had just, lucky and fortuitous bounces on that turf. For whatever reason, that turf is horrible as it is. The Galaxy are 4-3-4 up there. I mean, that's an impressive record. 8 times out of 11 games, they have gotten a result. And that's something that, it's one of those weird things. Sometimes you just play teams well. And I don't know if the LA Galaxy clearly this year is shot. But the chance to play spoiler, Siggy's fired up for it. He wants to go back up to it where he spent 7.5 years, as I said in the intro. He wants to win games. The Galaxy have a little bit of confidence coming off this Colorado game. I mean, that helps too. All of these things are helping the LA Galaxy, but you look at the roster for Seattle and there's so many game changers. You got Clint Dempsey, you got Nicholas Ladero, you got Jordan Morris, you got Will Bruin, Christian Roldan, Ozzy Alonso, even Chad Marshall back there in defense, and then Stephen Fry in goal. These are guys who are very, very good. And you look at that compared to the LA Galaxy, and in terms of, creativity and just who you should be worried about, the LA Galaxy don't hold a candle to Seattle right now.
Right. I would agree with that. I think one of the biggest things in this rivalry is, honestly, I almost want to go back to Landon Donovan days where he thrived off that animosity. I think kind of one of my favorite Galaxy pictures all time would be Landon's last game in Seattle. It was that playoff game where Juninho scored that goal. I was there for it. It was lovely. But there was a picture that came out of it where someone had made a sign that said LA is for a-holes, and it has Landon up on the screen. And I think that's my favorite thing, because Landon thrived so much on that animosity between these two teams. But looking at the LA roster, I don't see anyone that has that kind of fire that Landon had for these big games. And I think that's really what's missing here. So it's making me doubt that just a little bit.
Yeah, and I can understand that. This is, it's an important game, if only to keep John Kempen's hopes alive. I mean, you don't want to disappoint John at this point. He put it out there, said, hey, if you win, you get in the playoffs, prove him right. Win all 9 games that he made that prediction about. He didn't predict they were going to win. He just said if they did. I don't want to give it like, he predicted something that's going to happen. It's not. But I mean, you go out there and you do it. And, these guys are playing, and I've said it before, they're playing for jobs. There are guys who are not going to be on this team next year, Britt. And they're going to be guys who maybe don't play soccer again. just from the fact that they get cut from this team. So you have pride, and Dave Romney sort of said, you have to have some pride in what you do, and you have to go out there and you fight for pride, and that's, I can get behind that, and I can understand, sort of the ways that the LA Galaxy are trying to approach these last games. Siggy says it's one game at a time. That's all you can sort of look at, but this stretch coming up is going to be brutal. This is one game where you have a chance. You're fully rested. You got the full week. Granted, Seattle has had 2 weeks, but it's still going to work in your favor, and it could work in their favor that being Seattle had 2 weeks off, that they're not as, ready to go. Obviously, you had Jordan Morris and Clint Dempsey playing for the U.S. men's national team, so I think they're not going to be as rusty as, unfortunately, the LA Galaxy would hope. But, I mean, this is where you're at now. So if you have to bet all of your Corner of the Galaxy money on, Britt, which is a lot, I'll push it over to you, and you can take the money. If you had to bet all of your Corner of the Galaxy money, where do you bet on this particular game?
Seattle.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to say it, but I mean, I also have my notes that Seattle's unbeaten in their last 4 against Los Angeles, and this LA team's not really ready to break that record. I don't think. I fully believe that it's going to be a 5th, as Debbie Downer as that sounds.
Yeah, so you have to go back to July 9th, 2016, the last time the LA Galaxy beat the Seattle Sounders. That was up in Seattle, a 1-0 victory. After that, it was up in Seattle again, a 1-1 draw in 2016 towards the end of July. And then you get into the 4-2 whopping that Seattle put on the LA Galaxy in 2016 and went on to win an MLS Cup. That was down at StubHub Center. It was a 3-0 loss earlier this year at StubHub Center for the LA Galaxy on April 23rd, and then the 0-0 draw on July 29th, Ziggy's first game. So that's where it's at. Yeah, whenever you look at these two teams and the stats and just everything that's sort of compared, and they do these nice comparisons where it tells you, games played and wins and all these things, and you just look at goals conceded where the LA Galaxy have conceded 47 and Seattle have conceded 34. Shots. So Seattle Sounders have 303 more shots than 303 shots. I was like, oh, that's a lot. 303 shots to the Galaxy's 259. Shots on target, 118 for the Seattle Sounders and 106 for the LA Galaxy. So at least when LA shoots, it's on target. At least that seems to be what I'm learning from this comparison. So you just look at all these different things, and it's clear that Seattle is the better team. Does that mean that they win? No, because it's Major League Soccer. But if you're betting all the money right now, then, and all of my Corner of the Galaxy bucks are bet as well, then you're putting it on Seattle to win this game. It's at home. They don't lose. Can the Galaxy get a point? Yes. Can the Galaxy steal a win? Yes. They certainly deserve to steal one. I think the LA Galaxy probably deserve that more than any team out there for Major League Soccer right now. But whether or not they will is certainly a long shot for sure. So that's sort of where I leave with that. Anything else, Britt, that you want to get to in terms of the LA Galaxy, the Seattle game, or anything else that we have covered during this particular show?
Nope, I think we've covered it all.
All right, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and we'll get on out of here.
You can find me on Twitter at _BrittJo, BRITTJO, for Total MLS or Corner of the Galaxy.
All right, make sure that you follow Britt on Twitter. Absolutely. If you're looking for me on Twitter, at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course, at Galaxy Podcast is where you can find me. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com as well. We have a... I'm Josh Guesman, and you've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.